Coach Tim Walton, welcome to the Mindset Advantage podcast and the Coaching Beyond the Scoreboard series.
Thanks for having me on, DJ. This is great. Obviously, it's that time of year for us in our season where your mindset is probably not as important as having good talent on the field, but is definitely more important than the beginning of the year. You gotta be right in your mind. You gotta be right in your body.
That's right. So, two national championships, six SEC tournament championships, nine SEC regular season championships, over 1,000 career wins. I think it's safe to say that you've won an incredible amount of games in your career. What's the most important lesson that winning has taught you?
Yeah, it's funny, at an early age, playing baseball, and I raced motorcycles until I was 12, right, almost to 12 years old. And my family was in a family of athletes. We raced motorcycles, we water skied and did stuff like that. It's fun, and very competitive, but we nobody really played team sport. And so at an early age, I really picked up on, just the importance of, how to get the most out of yourself, but how you can get the most out of everybody else around you in a positive way. And I was really reflecting 2 weeks ago. I was at the men's Final Four national championship game between Florida and Houston, and at the end of the game, I'm just sitting there going, man, how many national championships that I've been to. That was my first ever basketball. Been to a couple football, been to baseball, been to softball, obviously. It's just I think the one of the keys that I can think about from winning is just how you really you're only as good as the people around you, and how do you get the most out of the people around you? And I think that's I didn't know that at a young age, but I've always been on winning teams. We've always won championships, and you pick up, you learn, and it just becomes part of who you are and part of what you expect. I guess that's kind of the biggest key is most people, well, I want to win, but you've never really been around it. You don't understand what it's about, and if you can learn from it, it can carry you obviously for a lifetime.
Did anything surprise you, coach, about winning back-to-back national championships or getting that 1,000 career win title? Is there been any surprises along the way in becoming so successful?
Yeah, I think the one thing that you can really lean on from success is that how hard it gets once you set a bar. When you set the bar, I think Urban Meyer talked about this the most. It's a lot more fun climbing the mountain than it is trying to stay on top of the mountain. And I think there's a lot of truth to that when you're accomplishing things for the first time, over and over and over. Yeah, here's the first of this, here's the first of that. After you do it, everything's a comparison to doing it again. And I think it takes the fun out of it sometimes because, and by it, I mean just me. The taking the fun out of it just comes down to the fact that now you're just completely comparing. You're comparing last team to this team. You're comparing that championship to this championship. But one of the things that I can tell you is I'm a type A personality. The party after the 2015, which was our second national championship, the party after the 15 championship was a heck of a lot better than the 14 championship because we weren't prepared for the celebration in the 14, but we were in the 15. It was a lot better.
Oh man, that's so funny. How has your definition of success changed over the years? Is it something that's evolved in your career, coach, or is it something that's pretty much stayed the same in the last 20 plus years?
Yeah, it's definitely evolved. I tell you early on in my career that winning was probably one of the most important things of it. I had a line, and you had to be disciplined. You had to be mentally tough. You had to be physically tough. You had to work really hard. And I think that things have changed. I think, two things have changed. Number one is working smarter, not harder. I think that, early in my career was work hard, work hard, work hard. And later on, we've just evolved and changed. And it's work smarter. You don't have to go out there and work 4 hours a day. You can go out there and work, maybe I might work 7 hours in a practice day, and our athletes might work an hour and a half, two and a half, whatever. We've learned how to really kind of get the most out of our athletes in a different way. And then the other part of that, that I kind of think about, is I'd much rather lose than win with a bunch of people that I just don't like or don't respect. And and again, I know that doesn't sound very fair for a coach to say it that way, but I want to like you, I want to trust you, I want to respect you, and I think when you can get to that level, it makes losing even more tolerable because you just know everybody's giving it their all. Nobody's blaming somebody for their failures. Nobody's blaming someone for whatever. They're just absorbing, they're being accountable, and the chemistry is good. And chemistry doesn't always win games. But I think chemistry is one of those things that it leaves a lasting impression on you for life. And I think that's just, again, I tell my players this all the time. I'm going to be here next year. Like, I know that I'm going to be here. And I want you to be here too, but here's what I want, here's what I expect, and here's what I need. I need you to be able to really respect and to treat everybody how you want to be treated, and think before you speak. I mean, really just think before you. If you've got a really good relationship with someone in the heat of the moment, you can say what you want. If you don't have a great relationship with someone, you better make sure you take a deep breath, think about what you're going to say, because it may leave a lasting impression on that person for the rest of your life,
Hmm.
or at least the rest of their life.
I want to go back a second. You mentioned that the climb is less difficult than staying at the top, and you've been at the top for ever since you've kind of been there. What are some of the unique challenges that come with being at the top? Maybe people on the outside go, must be nice. You're at the top. It's probably easy to stay there. You get the best recruits, et cetera, et cetera. What are some of the unique challenges that come with sustaining excellence?
Yeah, here's one for me. I definitely like being at the top from a recruiting standpoint. I like to be able to have an opportunity to select the players that I feel like fit with what we do and we fit with what they want to do. And I think that part I love, being at Florida for 20 years and being able to go into a household and tell them, hey, here's our template for success. We'd love you to be a part of it. Now that's the best part. The climbing part of it, and what I look at is it's a constant comp, and like last night, for example, we're in our game. We've got a lead, got a hitter who can handle the bat really well. I've got a person, we have a defense where the defense is playing back a little bit. So I call a squeeze bunt. And, she fouled it off, no big deal. And someone in the stands yells out, swing the bat, and they kind of give you their opinion. And it's like, why are you yelling? Why are you yelling at a 21-year-old, female athlete on a field? B, don't you think we know what we're doing? Like, we've been doing this a long time. We're not going to just put a bunt down for no reason. And so there's just things, and we're going to need that kid to drop a bunt down in a 0-0 game down the line. Well, how do you get better at it? We practice that stuff every single day. And so I think that, what happens is we as fans, and I'm going to use myself, I'm not going to call anybody else out. I'm going to call myself out. I'm a fan, and I have expectations of our sports teams. It may be baseball, maybe basketball, maybe volleyball, maybe football. And but at the end of the day, the persons that are running the team are constantly being criticized for what they do, what decisions they make. Why are you playing that person? Why aren't you playing this person? And so those kind of things in a longer career, they start to weigh on you because the voices get deeper and longer and more, and there's more of them. And it doesn't mean I'm listening to them more. There's more of them because people feel comfortable knowing that, hey, this coach has been here for a long period of time. We have the ability to go ahead and say what we want to say because we know them. They've been there for 20 years. And so I think that's probably the thing that's the most, it's the hardest. It's not difficult. I have thick skin. If someone sends me an email and says, "Hey, you need to get better at this, this, and this," I'm like, "You don't think I know that? Like, that's what we're working hard for." Like, yeah, I get it. So at the end of the day, I think that as a fan, and I don't mind people giving me their opinion, because I think that they have the right to their opinion. It's just like, just think before you speak, and don't yell at a young athlete on the field. She's trying to do what she's supposed to do, and that part drives me crazy.
What would be your advice or strategy to perhaps a younger coach out there who's having a hard time with this? Maybe it's a high school coach that is hearing the stuff from the fans or the parents that can sometimes be so difficult. What's the advice to turning down that knob so they can turn up the inside voice? What advice would you give to a coach like that?
Well, the first thing I would always tell my athletes is no matter what, no matter who, no matter how, you can't control what your parents do. and what your parents say and what your parents think. You can't control that. So I work really hard at trying to build a really strong relationship with my players to get them to be in control of the noise, to try to be in control of what's being said, and again, I have an open practice. Parents can come out to practice and watch practice if they're in town or out, because a lot of our players are out of state and their parents don't get a chance to see them that often. So come to a practice. But I just, it's the thing we talk about all the time. Control what you can control, but I do think that you have to invest in your athletes. You have to invest in them from a relationship standpoint to where the noise is the noise, but the noise doesn't become a distraction because no matter what we do, no matter how we do it, there's always going to be somebody that has an opinion, and you can't control that. So, if you've got a 51% approval rating, I think you're doing a pretty dang good job.
How do you think, what's your kind of approach to managing that parent relationship in today's coaching environment? How has that kind of evolved during your coaching career?
Well, in the recruiting process, so we'll kind of put this into two buckets. Now, bucket number one is high school recruiting. In the recruiting process, you're trying to build as strong a relationship with the parents as you are the kid because you're recruiting a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid and you're dealing with and you're recruiting their parents because their parents have the list of, all right, what's the academics look like? Where are they going to live? How much money are they going to have? What's a day look like? And then the kid wants to know, what kind of gear do you have? How long are practices? Do you have tests? What are the things? And so they all have different questions and different needs. And so you build this strong relationship with the parent, and then you drop their kids off, and you say, "Oh, hey, I don't want to talk to you again for the rest of your kid's career." Well, that's not true. We've built a strong relationship. So I think ultimately, in the high school recruiting for me, it's just build a strong relationship with the parents. You do have to set some parameters. Like at some point in time, if I'm a parent dropping my kid off, I want my kid to be happy. I want my kid to be part of the problem or part of the solution. In other words, either there's a problem and you need to fix it, or you need to have a solution to how you can fix it. But at no point in time should the kids be complaining to their parents about the coach or the program or this or that. They should be complaining to the coach about the program, the coach, this or that, or if they want to play more, how can I get to that point? So I think there is an ownership and a maturity level and a relationship that needs to be built. And I can tell you that all of my best players in my career, the relationship that I've had with them has been very strong. And that not necessarily do I always agree with what they say, but the fact that I'm willing to listen to what they say, and especially if they follow my one rule, which is this: timing. You have to have proper timing to ask me questions about playing time, or you have to have proper timing to question my decisions. In other words, we win a game, you want to come to talk to me after the game about how you got to play more. Probably not the right time. We lose a game, you want to talk to me about how you want to play more. Probably not the right time tonight, and maybe not even tomorrow until, maybe give me a little bit of time to process all of the decisions I've made. But I also want my players, when they come to me, to come with me with a solution.
Mm.
Don't just come to me with a problem. Hey, I want to play more. Okay, great. Tell me where you want to play. Tell me how you want to play. Well, I want to play this position. Well, so and so plays that position. Are you better than that person? Well, no. Okay, well, then you need to figure out what position you are better than. And then my final thing is kind of in comps. Like, I don't want them to compare themselves to other people either. I want them to compare themselves to how they can get better and how they can a bigger an asset to the team, but also be a bigger asset to themselves, how they can get the full potential of themselves out. Because I've really worked hard at, some players are coming here first day, they're ready to play. Some players, it takes them 3 years for them to be ready to play. And if they're willing to be patient, we'll come up with a plan, and hopefully it's a mature plan of development. So, and then the final piece is transfer portal recruiting. So that's a different relationship because typically someone's coming to you because they already know what they want, or they already know what they didn't have before, and they have a need of what they want. And so that relationship with parents is usually a little different because now you're dealing with, in most cases, an adult in the recruiting process. And so that relationship with the parent, although it's be good, it is totally different. And but I do think you have to build relationship with your athletes. It's the only way for the noise to be minimized. And again, even then, no matter what, parents, maybe it's family members, maybe it's fans. They're still going to give you their opinion, right or wrong, and you can't control that. You just hopefully can have built a strong relationship with your athletes that you can get past it.
What are the signs that a parent is over involved?
Yeah, well, they over involved the making, like probably a little bit too consumed with like, well, hey, my kid was going to fly home for Christmas, or they're going to come home for Thanksgiving, or, what does she have to do this, or what does he have to do this? And in most cases, the athletes they're already equipped with that. They know the date for Christmas break. They know their final schedule. And so that's another thing that, again, I deal with a lot of parents like that in my career that, they're the ones booking the plane tickets. They're the ones booking the family vacations. They're the ones booking let's say it's a nutritionist or a teen or a doctor or a dental appointment. So they're trying to still manage their kids' lives in a professional way. So it has nothing to do with playing time and some other things. So what I try to do is really work hard behind the scenes with the athletes of those parents that I know, hey, their parent is really involved in their life, and so they are the only ones that can tell their parent, hey, you need to back off a little bit, and or it's not even back off. Like if you've got any questions about stuff, just run them through me. Coach Walton gives me a good schedule. He gives me a calendar. He gives me all the details. Now, where I will say, if a parent notices something about their athlete, about their kid that's off, could be a depressed state. It could be doesn't seem as happy. It could be financially something's going wrong. It could be there's an illness in the family or a relationship issue. I do think that they need to pick up the phone and call me and say, "Hey, I've noticed some things. I hope you've noticed them, but if you haven't noticed them, I just want to bring them to your attention." Hey, thank you, because in my opinion, sometimes we will miss those things in a 4 hour period of time on the field. We don't always see the life issues, and I want to be helpful in that. And maybe it's, maybe I can bring them into my office. Maybe they need help. Maybe they need some money. Maybe they need to talk to a counselor. Maybe they need to see a doctor. Maybe their parents are going through a divorce or they're going through something. There's just things. So, at the end of the day, you've got the social side, you got the academic side, and then you got the sports side. And I think if we have sport side issues, they're a heck of a lot better than having family or life issues or academic issues. Sport is sport, and it is what it is. And through adversity, you're going to become better from it. If you can deal with adversity, you're going to be a heck of a lot better than if somebody's doing it for you all the time. So again, it goes back to relationships. Sometimes the parents, they're not necessarily overbearing, but they feel like they know their kid better than the kid knows themselves, and so they try to do a lot of stuff for them. And for in some cases, I've seen it to be really, really good. In other cases, when the kid comes to campus, they're not equipped. They're not equipped with paying bills. They're not equipped with showing up on time. They're not equipped to following through on appointments because they don't know they even exist. So I think at the end of the day, you don't want to cut your kids off. You just want to hopefully teach them the responsibilities necessary to adulting, to growing up. And I'm a parent of three, and I'm equally as guilty. I mean, yesterday, my son and I and my wife coordinated a rendezvous to get my daughter's tires on her Jeep. Well, in theory, my daughter should have probably been putting her own dang tires on her Jeep. I shouldn't have probably done it for her like that, but in my life, it makes sense. Hey, we got another driver. We can drop it off. You're out of town. Let's figure this thing out. But did I help her or did I handicap her? And I gotta kind of figure that out. I think I helped her. She said thank you, but at the end of the day, as a parent, I need to sometimes cut my kids off too, so that they learn how to kind of deal with their own stuff.
Yeah, are we helping our kids or are we handicapping our kids? I like that, coach. It's really good. I want to talk about culture with you. You have a culture that gets talked about all throughout softball and all throughout the country. I mean, everybody talks about the culture at Florida. I loved this quote that you said in a podcast I was listening to, researching you and kind of getting to know you a little bit. You said that getting people to do something because they want to do something, but because they have to do something. That's the ultimate sign of culture. That's championship stuff. When the kids want to do something, not have to do something. I couldn't agree more. I haven't exactly heard it put that way. What I want to know is what's the process of getting your student athletes to shift from I have to do something to I want to do something?
Yeah. Here, again, I was telling you this before. We had a student athlete graduation brunch this morning, and again, it to me it's a priority to try to make sure that we as coaches go to those opportunities to capture those moments. Graduating from the University of Florida, graduating from any college institution is a huge life accomplishment, and I wanted to be there for that. So as we got back from it, all of my coaches and my wife went to this for two of our seniors that graduate next week. And so when we get back, we pull up to the batting cage or the front of our facility, and there are players in the batting cages that are hitting, and again, it's 10:30 in the morning, and they're hitting in the cages. We have practice today at 11:30, and they're hitting because they want to. And I think that's the line to me. It's the biggest separator in being a good program to being a great program. When athletes recognize we have all the resources that you need to be successful. We have an athletic trainer. Actually, we have three athletic trainers. We have a strength coach. We have four coaches. We have everybody that'll do everything for them at any point in time. All they have to do is ask, and all they have to do is have the drive and the want to. And so getting them to really appreciate that they have these things as opposed to they have to do these things is a separator. And that is the culture. To me, when you can get players into your program, and we've had players that have been mediocre workers. They've just been average workers. And average workers don't usually equal good players. But we've had average workers be really good players. And when they learned how to become better workers, smarter workers, not always harder workers, when they became greater players. And I think that you don't have to, and there's kind of a line of what did God give you, and then what do you have to continue to develop? And I think we're always continuing to develop, to learn and know about ourselves. But I've got players that need 500 swings a day, and I've got other players that only need 100. But I want it to be the best dang 100 swings you took that day, not just check the box of I got my 100 swings in, coach. I should be batting fourth. It doesn't work like that. You can get 50 swings, and that kid over there can get one swing, and she's still better than you just because God gave her a gift. Now, if we can get her to work a little bit more like you, now you're going to get better. She's going to get better. We're going to get better. And from a winning culture, just iron sharpens iron. And, I think that's what I'm talking about more than anything is I come to work every day, sick. I've had surgery. I've rolled up on a golf cart after having my meniscus redone. I didn't come because I had to. As a matter of fact, the doctor told me not to come to the field, and I rolled up in a golf cart to watch the rest of practice because I wanted to. And so I think it does start with me, and it starts with my staff people, that we want to do this. We want to be here. We want to help facilitate a great experience for our athletes. And what makes a great experience for your athletes? Well, winning. Winning makes it even better. I think there's I don't even know, winning's a heck of a lot better than losing adage. It might be a Bull Durham type quote or something. But long story short, I do think that culture is really all about the results. I mean, you have strong culture, I think results will then follow. And people have to hold each other account. You have to hold yourself accountable. I heard this one time, and I think this is probably the best way to shape this, and that is look in the mirror. That's your real competition. And most of us, when we look in the mirror, we see an image, and sometimes we see a really positive image. Sometimes we see a really negative image. But look in the mirror. Don't look around. Don't check the person next to you or this side of you. Look in the mirror. I think that really helps me kind of just continue to just do it because I love it. I like it. I don't really have a job. I have an opportunity, and I take full advantage of it.
It's amazing what that one word can do, have to versus want to. I mean, it's just one word, but that whole shift is just a way healthier mindset to have. Coach, what does it look like when you either feel one of your athletes or maybe it's your entire team kind of get into that have to mindset? what does that look like? Of course, it's really fun when everybody's want to and we're excited and we're at practice early and we're doing these things. But what does it look like when you're kind of on the opposite side? It's feeling like, oh, we have to do this. What do you do then,
Yeah.
coach?
Yeah, we've gone through those speed bumps of a season. One of our players said this at the beginning of the year in a preseason banquet. She said that I'm going to say this out loud. She said that I'm going to look at this season as a bunch of legs of a race. And along this journey of this race, there's going to be a bunch of legs. I'm going to come out of the blocks. I'm going to feel fresh and happy. And then at some point in time, I'm going to get mentally fatigued, maybe even dehydrated, maybe a little bit of this and then I'm going to be happy again, and then I'm going to be strong again, and then their competition is going to get tougher. Someone's catching up to me, and what am I going to do? So being able to look at that, I think that that's the want to. I have the want to go do something. I have an opportunity to go do something as opposed to I have to go out and do this stuff. Is last night at the end of our game, I had a young person in my dugout who is one of our managers, and we have a phone. We have a plan on the board. We have a ton of stuff, and everybody has kind of a responsibility at the end of the game to take in these things and do these things. I have one person on my team at the end of every game, at the end of every practice. They're responsible to make sure that nobody left their cleats behind, nobody left their stuff behind. Somebody's responsible to make sure that everybody's got their stuff picked up. So I said to my manager, I said last night, I go, hey, are you getting the phone? Because the phone was still plugged in. We usually take the phone in every night because obviously you don't want the dust and the humidity to get to it. And I said, are you? And she goes, I can. Um, and I said, no, no, that's not what I asked you. I said, are you getting it? She goes, oh yeah, I'm getting it. I said, okay, good. That's just a word shift. Like I can means you're doing it because you're doing it for me. I am means I'm doing it for we. And yeah, yes, I am going to grab it. And she didn't mean anything by it. But that's her working for me. I can grab it or I am grabbing it. That's her working with me because everybody has a responsibility to do their job. And sometimes your responsibility is to do other people's job too, because on every organization, there's always a slacker. There's always somebody who forgets, who's late, who doesn't do stuff. And, I think at the end of the day, when you can have people pick each other up, reminders of this and do a little stuff. Now, eventually, you'll have one of our players will forget their glove. It's that one player. She forgets it at least every other day. And she'll come out to practice and her glove will be flying on the flagpole because someone's tired of picking up her stuff. That's also a reminder to, hey, yeah, pick up your stuff. So I think you can have fun and still be, kind of, again, accountable. And then, like I said, working with me versus working for me is the best compliment you can have in any workplace.
Yeah. It seems from afar, one of your many superpowers, coach, is your ability to create themes around your seasons and how you use imagery and stories and visuals, all these different ideas to bring the theme to life. I think this is an area that has a lot of legs to it, has a lot of power to it. And it's a missing ingredient in a lot of programs, maybe not at the college level, but certainly at the high school level. Can you talk to me and my listeners, my coaches, kind of about how you go about the theme, why it's important, and then maybe some advice you'd give to a coach that is thinking about doing something like that?
Yeah, well, it's funny. My wife always goes like, we won a national championship 2014. We won a national championship in 2015. One of the best teams I've ever coached was 2008 and 2009. I mean, we lost in those 2 seasons. We lost 10 games total in the 2 seasons. It's like, oh my gosh, we went, 63-5 and 70-5. And she's like, hey, we need to have the theme like one of those years. And I'm like, it doesn't work like that. She goes, what are you talking about? Like it worked. No, it didn't work. It was a byproduct. The team, the mantra, the players, the personalities, they all fit within that and you become part of it. So, for me, this team, our mantra is totally different than the mantra of last year's team. Even though some of the players are the same, it doesn't work like that. So I think when you're buying into, so, it could be a goal. It could be a goal that we're striving for this. So let's make that our mantra. Or it could be last year. Last year we fell apart, blah, 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 blah. So let's make that the goal. One year, I just felt like our team was so focused on winning that we were losing the relationship piece. We were losing the love for the game. We were losing, all the things that we started playing this game for. And so we came up with the mantra, and the mantra was brick by brick. And it was really understanding that, each person in the program, staff included, is a brick. But if there's no mortar, if there's nothing that's going to hold us together, we're going to fall apart in tough situations. We're going to fall apart in adversity. We're going to fall apart when somebody's getting a lot more attention than maybe another player is getting. And so, it's basically a foundational, it's a foundational approach of, the relationships, and what you put into somebody is what's going to hold this place together. It was great. And I really felt like, man, this is just exactly what this team needed. Now we got walked off and our season was over, and we didn't get back to the College World Series to try to defend our back-to-back national championships. But at the end of the day, it goes back to what I said earlier. I had no regrets. Walked into the locker room after the end of our season, talked to the players, took the seniors out to brunch the next day, and I went away and I flew away in the sunset. Like, I love the players. They gave me everything they had. The other team ended up being better in that 1, 2 days, but ultimately the season wasn't a loss because the relationships were a win. And I think that, again, now maybe if I didn't have the 14 and the 15 national championships, I'd have been crying for the next month, but I did, and so did those players. And I think that's kind of the message. But anybody that wants to create a mantra, I think it needs to be inspired, and I think it needs to be collaborated. It can't be something that I make up, because now that they're not bought into the mantra, it doesn't work, And the Mark Few, the head basketball coach at Gonzaga, and his staff, they do a fantastic job of trying to create mantras and things to be relevant to their team, because they're always fighting, the David and Goliath type approach of college basketball. Well, I got a basketball sitting here in my office that Mark Few and his staff sent me, a signed ball that they just got inspired by one of our brick by brick mantras, and the video that went with it. And so I've worked with the gentleman named Brett Ledbetter, who does the What Drives Winning stuff for forever and ever and ever. And one thing you'll never hear me say is a lot of the same stuff. And you might quote me from a podcast, and I'll have to go, okay, where was I at? What was I doing? Because that day is different than today. Even though I'm not like a BSer, I'm not somebody who's going to sit there and blow smoke and tell you all these things about how I'm going to sell you this car and do all this stuff. I'm going to tell you what my heart feels on that day. And my players know the same thing, that if I'm going to say something, I'm going to say it. I'm not going to think it. I'm going to tell you. You may not always like it, but I'm going to tell you what I think, what I feel. And at the end of the day, I'm trying to build a better relationship with you, but I'm trying to get more out of you. There's more in the tank. And sometimes being honest is the best tool.
And I think what those mantras or themes can do is they can create a little bit more of an identity for your team. And so for coaches out there that maybe don't have an identity for their team, or they're trying to figure that out, what that theme can do is bring your team closer and bring everybody on the same side of the table of, okay, this is who we are. And I think even more with kids, student athletes, high school and college, and even below, I think they gravitate and they hold on to things more when it's a little more imaginative, or it has a theme, or it has some stories, or it has some metaphors to it. I think it just attaches more per se to that group versus maybe a professional group. And that's why I'm such a big believer too. And I'm traveling the country working with teams, is trying to come up with, what is the theme of the year? It's not a silly thing like let's come up with a phrase. It's like, no, let's really dive into it and not just go an inch deep. Let's go 10 feet deep on what does it mean to be we over me. That sounds awesome. It's on the shirts. That's great. But every week, let's talk about it. Let's come up with stories. Let's do activities that back up what it means to be we over me, or whatever the mantra is. So I think for student athletes specifically at that age, it helps them really hold on and grab onto something.
Yeah, I think by nature, but people, so you and I are friends. You tell me a story about your workplace environment, you got an issue with a coworker, blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm automatically going to be an enabler in this situation. I'm going to enable you into having your feelings. And, if I told you, hey, DJ, you're wrong, you're a jerk, why are you well, that's probably the last lunch, brunch, whatever we're going to be at again, So I don't think that teammates have to be harsh. I don't think teammates have to be mean. I also don't think that it's healthy to be an enabler. And so being able to have goals, have mantras, have things that you're striving for, you still have to hold people accountable for their loose tongue in times where they're trying to protect, what you might think, what I might think of myself. Well, so I think ultimately there's a lot of dynamics there. I heard Coach K talk about he doesn't set goals. He doesn't like goals, and I think for a lot of us out there, I go, whoa, I'm a goal setter. Like I want to have a goal. But if I were running a really good team that doesn't have a chance to win a championship, or we're a good team, then goals may not be the best thing I want to have because every season is going to be a letdown. And so having a mantra and having something to shoot for besides just the trophies, the rings, the wins, I think ultimately can set an environment, a culture, can set things up to where you can, even though you might not win the game or you might not play really well, but you still have a strong team, you still have a strong mantra, you still have a strong purpose. Purpose, I want to win everything I do. It could be checkers, it could be ping pong. I beat my son last night in ping pong. I mean, I'm like 1 in 90 against this kid. But you know what? Last night I won the championship. I said it. I won the championship. And my wife yells and she goes, "You haven't beat him in 6 months. It's not a championship." I go, "Today was the championship." Like it was it. And I rose up. But long story short, I lost 90 games probably in a row to the kid. But I kept trying, I kept trying, I kept trying. Now, if it was a team sport, we'd have to come up with some mantra. I would have shown up last night with probably a WWE belt and threw it over my shoulder, and we'd have came in with it. But sometimes having purpose other than just focusing on the results, especially in women's sport. And I don't even want to draw that line, men's and women's, but at the end of the day, in women's sport, if you can get every athlete like this, I mean, you can roll anybody over on any given day. And if you've got really good players and you're all like this, it doesn't matter. You're going to lose because the players don't trust each other. They're not bought in. Because my athletes, when they trust me, I mean, they will run through a wall for me. They'll do anything for me. If they're not quite sure, they're hesitant, they're not confident, we're just not going to be in a great place.
Okay, cool. I want to double click there. I couldn't agree more. In women's sports and in men's sports, men's are a little bit more focused on task. Women are a little bit more focused on relationships. I'm not saying that's 100% the way, but it's just kind of leans that way. Knowing what you know now, what's the advice you'd give to coaches who are coaching female athletes on how to build the relationship piece? If the relationship becomes before the task, or relationships bring results, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think ultimately, you can't just go in and start building relationships and forget about the
Mhm.
X's and O's and the tasks and stuff. So I think there's definitely a formula. And for me, we in college sports, we have time periods where we have team practice and we have individual practices. We have team building and we have individual building. And I think that what I know of this, for example, I'll tell you this. So next year, I already know my whole calendar for the year. Okay, I know exactly what it looks like. And one of the emphasis I put on myself was when we come back next year in the first 5 weeks, we're going to do a little bit more team building because we don't get together as a team. We do a lot of individual training. And so I think there's at times a lack of knowing, the catcher and the center fielder, the pitcher and the shortstop, because we're just running our own race. And so going to try to do things a little bit more, a little earlier to try to build those relationships. Because if I know you, I don't care what position we play. If I know you, I'm going to have a little bit more leeway to you and whether it's performance, whether it's you running at 6 a.m., whether it's you lifting weights, whether it's showing up 2 minutes early instead of 20 minutes early. Like if I know you, there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a bigger impact. And then the other piece of it is if we build the relationships, I'm ultimately as a player in a program, I'm going to be happier. I can't wait to get to the field. I can't, but if I don't know you, oh gosh, I don't want to get to the field. I think the players they're judging me, or I just, and a lot of our athletes see our athletes on TV, so they might even have a larger than life personality. And so I think it's really important to really integrate the newer players with the older players as soon as possible, so you can get to where you can get closer to the cultural piece, and the relationship piece, and then ultimately the X's and O's stuff will take its time.
Yeah, I love this line that teams work best when they understand how each individual works best. Coach, what's your favorite team building exercise?
Well, it used to be we would try to do things in the community where we would go. We did a Habitat for Humanity build. We've done a Ronald McDonald House feed, Special Olympics, kickball games, and things like that. That used to be kind of my best team build. We started to do some leadership training and some things. So I've said this like, everybody talks about leadership and everybody talks about all these things, mental toughness and all the things. And so I think it's important that I'm working on my leadership training. Okay. So me as a leader, my job is to get everybody around me better, not just the two or three players. That's how I define leadership. A leader gets everybody around them better, not just doesn't just pick and choose. They get everybody around them better. And so if I don't have people that want to be led, it's impossible to be a good leader. And there are plenty of them. I've seen more of them now in the last probably 5 years than ever before. Some people just don't want to be led. Either they have all the answers, they're really smart, they're stubborn, they have their own ways, whatever it is. So being able to learn how to be led is also a skill. And so we've done a ton of stuff with our ROTC programs the last few years. And I think that that's really helped us. When you got military style training and understand task at hand and teamwork, and not just me telling you what to do, but you actually listening. Because, at the end of the day, our military, obviously, they make a mistake, it's going to cost somebody something. In softball, we make a mistake, it's going to cost somebody something, but it's not nearly the same as what it, on the military side of things. And so learning how to problem solve, a lot of times the problems are staring you right in the face. It's the people that are right in your face that are the problems. And you got to figure out how to become, have a little bit of empathy, have a little bit of communication skills, and how you say something to me is probably as valuable, if not more valuable, than what you say. How you say it, and I think that those things are so. Best team building exercise for me is some of our ROTC training, but I love the community involvement. I think that to me is like when you can put something bigger than yourself in front of you and your players can respond to that because they see the impact. I think that's huge.
Mm. Coach, before you were coaching, you were a heck of a ball player yourself. I'm curious, what does the modern athlete have to deal with today that you didn't have to deal with when you were playing?
Yeah, well, no cell phones. We didn't have cell phones. It's funny. I don't even know how we kept up with people. I was drafted by the Philadelphia Phillies in the 25th round of the 95 draft. We're in Omaha. I got a telegram. I got a telegram to tell me I was drafted by the Phillies, which is crazy in itself. But social media, I think that the social media piece is so different, and I definitely I enjoy social media. I enjoy learning things about people and seeing things about teams and countries and sport, all kinds of stuff, and hearing stories and seeing people's videos posted. Those are, I mean, but the fact that I had plenty of bad games, plenty, and the fact that people can type and send you a message to tell you how bad you were or how terrible you are or how this or that. I think that that's probably the most disappointing thing about fans or competitors or people in general is that to not have the empathy for again a young person. You've got for me it's 18 to 22-year-old I call them kids still, but they have bad games. And don't you think they know they had a bad game? We don't need to. So I think that piece, I don't know that I would have handled that well. I was kind of I played a little bit of, I played very, not a little bit. I was always the most inspirational player on a team, not the most valuable player on the team. I think that's probably one of those things that helped my teams be better teams, is I was just inspired. I had a motor, I had an engine. I went. But I was pretty emotional. I think that, I drank a ton of Jolt Cola growing up, and I guess that would be equated to like the Red Bull of now. And I was, Metallica, and I was wild and crazy, and so I had plenty of games where I throw the ball over the backstop and pitch terrible. And if you had the ability to send me a message, fine. If you said it to my face, I mean, I don't know that it would have went very well because I'm not somebody who was probably going to hold back. So I just feel bad that we have that ability to send somebody. Like Joe Madden had this. I think he said it. I think the quote was after the 2000. I can't remember the year the Cubs won. Maybe it was 2016. The Cubs won the World Series. They lost in game. They lost to the Guardians. I think then they were the Indians in Game 6. And he got on his post game and said, I think there's a place for Twitter. There's a positive Twitter and a negative Twitter, and you can't be on both. You should be able to be on one or the other. I'm a positive Twitter guy. Like I think that everything I do is very positive, and everything I try to respond to is very positive. Now, it doesn't mean that I just think that's the way social media should be. Not a fake world, but something where you're like, hey, if I'm going to send something to someone who struggled yesterday, maybe I'll send them a Bible verse. Maybe I'll send them a video clip of them doing something really well, or maybe I'll send them maybe I'll send them a story about how, man, in 1994, I was at the College World Series. I'm warming up. This is a true story. I'm warming up at the College World Series, getting ready to go into the game. I'm a starting pitcher, mind you, and I'm warming up at the College World Series to get in the game. I'm not a reliever. But with that being said, I'm throwing balls on the field. Like the bullpen at Rosenblatt Stadium, the old Rosenblatt, the bullpens are still on the field. So I throw the ball, and they had to call time to get the ball because I'm throwing it on the field. And this guy sitting with his son at the game, little kid, I don't even know how old he was, and he's got drinks and food and whatever. And I mean, I'm so close I can actually pull up pretzel right off the rail. And he said, "Please tell me they're not going to put you into the game." And I'm like, and I, that was the best advice I've ever been given. Sure enough, here I come. I'm running into the game. I'm like, oh my gosh. But again, it goes kind of go back to that. Like I could tell that story now, but I could tell that to a kid who can't throw strikes in the bullpen before his first ever World Series. Like, you don't know this, but in big games, don't think that athletes don't know their big games. This is a big game. This is the biggest game. The athletes that are the best, it's a big game and they know it's a big game and they handle it like it's a nothing game. It's a normal game. That's the athletes that perform because they've prepared themselves for how tough this is going to be, how exciting it's going to be, how my heart's going to be beating, how I'm going to get nervous, how I want to throw up, in the middle of the game because I'm so excited, I'm so nervous, I'm anxious, whatever the words are. So I wish I would like to share that with athletes. That's how I think that in my mind, social media. But if I'm a negative person, like I got this other platform, I can jump in and we can bash each other and tell you how terrible you are. And I can't believe you're on scholarship and I can't believe, blah, 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 blah. And I just think that's really hard for athletes because they're living a life of in my opinion, it's make believe. Like it's not even real because people have the ability to tell you what they think and you don't even know their name, where they're from or who they are. And they might not even know their name or where they are or who they're from. They just sit there and they type and they just respond. And I think that's really hard on young people. It's harder on young people than it is on adults. It's really tough. And I'm thankful for that because I don't know that I would have made it. I
So
wasn't mentally tough enough. Like, listen, my coaches were really brutal on us, like brutal, brutal. Like that Augie Garrido locker room. Oh my gosh, I'm like, that's nothing. Wait till you see a helmet thrown at you in a
oh
locker room
geez.
before. And I thought that was like, man, this coach is awesome. I want to play for this guy. And now you're like, fire the guy. He's out of here.
From a coaching perspective, what's something that you're more convicted on now than ever? And what's something you've changed your mind on in the last 5 years?
Oh my gosh. Um, Well, I would say this, that, it's not 5 years, it's been longer, but I think that look good, feel good, play good. That's the mind frame that our athletes have taught me. Like literally, when I first started, I was coaching a baseball team of women. Like I coached our women the same as I would coach a baseball team.
Mm.
And again, that's not the right, you can't do it like that. You cannot do it like that. And you can do the bunts, you can do the overhand throw, you can play outfield. You can do a lot of things. You can hit like a baseball player, softball player. They can do pretty much the same, but you cannot in those locker rooms on those bus trips. They're not the same. They're different. You have to handle, women and men differently. And there's some comparisons, but for the most part, if you try to coach guys like girls and girls like guys, you're just not going to be successful. You have to read the room and do a better job of understanding your audience and where they're at, what they need, what they need. I think that's really important. But I think something that's been for me, and we've unfortunately for us, we haven't been as good as where we were. I mean, we were in a dominating program, from a win-loss standpoint, the SEC championships, College World Series appearances. We've still been good. I mean, for standards of like, for normal standards, I mean, we're one run away from playing for a national championship last year. We won the conference tournament last year, so we're good. But from what I'm used to, we haven't been as good. And the reason for that, simple, simple, simple. Early recruiting really put us in a position to where not all of those players, kind of were exactly what we thought they were going to be when we recruited them. We had some other players that were way better than that. And at the end of the day, I stayed loyal to all my commitments. I stayed loyal to all those players that we committed, and they didn't all pan out. Some did. But I think the biggest key that I've learned, and I feel good about it. Like I sleep great. Like I didn't cut a kid. I didn't let him go. At the end of the day, I stayed to my commitments. I stayed to my word. I stayed to my financial commitments. I did all the things in my mind necessary. And so that's one of my things that I'll say to my athletes. Like, what do you need? Tell me what you need. I don't care what she has. What do you need? What do you need? Do you need more money? Do you need a bigger scholarship? Do you need a different glove? Do you need a different color practice shirt? What do you need? Like, if that's going to make you feel happy, if that's going to make you confident, if that's going to make you run through a wall for your teammates, what do you need? Like, I don't care. Be part of the problem or part of the solution. And I want my players to be part of the solution. Tell me what you need, and we will make sure you get it. And if I don't, then that's that. Then don't trust me and don't be here. But that's not true because when our players say they need something, I pay attention. I think that's really, really important. I don't have all the answers. I have a lot of them, but I don't have all of them. And I think that, being able to collaborate and listen to your athletes and read the room, like I said before, I think it's super valuable.
Hmm. Coach, you're surrounded by some of the best coaches in a variety of sports at the University of Florida, whether it's a coach at University of Florida or a mentor or a coach somewhere around the country. What's the best piece of advice you've received from another coach in your 20 years at Florida?
Be careful what you wish for. Um, because I think that, that's, I'll use that one. That's the one that it stands out to me right away. I'll say this to you too, DJ, and we have a great group of coaches on this campus, and we always have. Jeremy Foley was our athletic director that hired me. Scott Strickland is our current athletic director and is amazing. He's a businessman. He's a Christian. He's a good man, but he's also a winner. He wants to win. He wants to do things the right way and create a great experience, just like Jeremy Foley. And I think I've been very, very fortunate to work for absolutely some of the best in the business. We, as our coaching group, is probably it's a little tougher right now because of NIL and because we're now actually out. Now, not only are we coaches, we're also fundraisers, CEOs, we're general managers. There's all kinds of titles that we have. And that has hurt the relationships because we just don't have as much time to spend together and collaborate because we're out. I would love to be able to spend more time with my team coaching, but I'm not spending as much time coaching my team as I was before because I've got a lot more things on my plate, just like our athletes have a lot more things on their plate as well. So I think that's really important. But probably the biggest piece of advice I've heard from a Hall of Fame coach was this: is that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. To make sure you appreciate what you have, and if you don't appreciate what you have, or maybe you do appreciate what you have, more isn't going to always make it better. Make sure you understand what, again, kind of goes back to what I said to our own athletes. What do you need that's going to make you happy? And is there such a thing? Are you ever going to be happy? Are you ever going to be satisfied with what you have? So I think those two things for me is, be careful what you wish for. And then, obviously the grass isn't always greener on the other side too.
Awesome. Coach, this is the Coaching Beyond the Scoreboard series. And every episode, when I've talked to a coach, I end with the same question here. What does it mean to you, Coach Tim Walton, to coach beyond the scoreboard? What does it look like for you to do that on a daily basis? What is that phrase or what is that sentence? What does that mantra mean to you?
Yeah. So, I was fortunate enough to be inducted I'm inducted now, but the announcement of me being into the NFCA, which is the National Fast Pitch Coaches Association Hall of Fame, which is, I mean, obviously a tremendous accomplishment, something that I'm humbled to even be mentioned with the other 98 names in that Hall of Fame. It was fitting for me. The announcement came at one of my former players, and then she became coach, one of my former players' wedding. So it was at her the night before the wedding, the rehearsal dinner, if you may. I was at her wedding in Hawaii when the announcement came. And to me, when you talk about coaching beyond the scoreboard, it's when you have an opportunity to be in people's lives long after the strikeouts, the home runs, the wins. That's when you know you're doing it the right way. And those are to me now, as I'm getting older, those are probably to me way more important than really than the wins. Winning is obviously what I do for my job, but being able to impact people for longer, getting pictures, seeing videos of their kids growing up, being able to watch a kid throw, and it's funny. I got a video the other day of a little girl gator chomping, and hey, I want to talk to Coach Walton. I'm like, that's the stuff that to me, that I really cherish. I didn't because I didn't have any experience at that. I'm living my own life with my own kids growing up, but now I'm cherishing those moments because that tells you everything you want to know about the impact that you've had on a young person, that they think enough of you to include you in their life. And I think that's something really, really special.
Oh, that's so cool. I just one quick follow-up. What's one strategy that coaches can do right now to start coaching beyond the scoreboard? What's one thing that they could do today, either with their team or if they're in the off season, that they could take with
Yeah, I
them?
mean, not to get, spiritual or political or anything like that, but I think it comes down to the relationship that you have in your own life. If you have I've been married, my wife and I have been married for, 26 years, got a good relationship with my kids. Like, you can't fake relationships with your team if you don't have relationships in your life. So, I think that to me, it goes back to yourself. Like,
Mm.
are you happy? Are you in a happy relationship? Do you have happy relationships? If you have those things, it's a lot easier to be present with your team. Otherwise, you're at your job or you're playing and you're thinking about your fight or you're thinking about your whatevers. And so I think it just kind of boils back down to selfishly. You have to have a good relationship in general with yourself and your own family to be able to input yourself or input your values into other people. I think that's important.
Awesome. Coach, this was a lot of fun. So much wisdom, so much knowledge. Thank you for your time. How can my listeners best support you and your program?
Well, I think DJ, I've never had anybody ask me like that. I think the coolest thing that anybody can do is spread, whether it's this podcast, spread the positivity. Like, just talk about things that you really, really enjoy, not only from me, but from other leaders, from other coaches, from other people that inspire you. Like, I think that inspiration, you never know when you're going to find true, valuable inspiration. When you get inspiration and motivation, man, it's like that last leg of the marathon, man. You got that banana, you got that water, whatever it is, and boom, I'm gonna burst this thing. So I think those things are important. I do believe that spreading positive things and just continue to but be real. I think that's important too. But just for my team, it's we're gonna win, we're gonna lose, and but when you have people that support you no matter what, I think that's really important.
Amen. Well, go Gators and good luck the rest of the season, Coach.
Thank you. Go Gators, EJ. Appreciate it.